Hey, I'm Chrissy, and welcome back to Photographer Life Check, where we check in about all things image making. Jumping straight into the photographer fit check, I'm not going to spend too long here because it's just this tea. I don't feel like standing up today. This tea is a Zara tea. If y'all remember last season, there was a long stint where I was hooked on the Uniqlo teas. I still am, but I'm currently hooked on these Zara teas. I have them in almost every color. I think I picked every color except for one because they just are fitting me in a really good way. And I kind of love when I have hyperfixations like this. They're kind of fun. Okay, so today's life check is a little personal, but I thought it would be a really good topic to talk about for folks who maybe want to be an exhibiting artist, who are maybe working on their first show and don't really know when a complete work when a work is complete to exhibit and what that like all entails. So why not break it down when I just had one premiere a couple days ago at the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance? So context. I have a project in group exhibit at the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance called Stateside. So for the theme for this exhibit was Caribbean women image makers. So I'm an exhibit with I think about 4 or 5 other Caribbean image makers, and we all have varying topics that we're personally discussing. The only requirement for this exhibit was the identity of being a Caribbean woman image maker. So Stateside for me is something I've been working on since last year. And the birth of it, I didn't exactly know what it was going to be when I started it, but it was one, rooted in what I was thinking about at that time. And two, I had faith that it was turning into something. Like I had this energy, I could feel that it was all going to come together. But through time, there were a lot of bits and pieces like slowly gravitating itself towards each other. So I gathered some questions to help me put this all together. So let's do this through question format and I'll break all these little things down. Okay. So boom. First question. How did you know the work was no longer just a body of images, but a body of thought that could hold an exhibition space? I think this is a really good question. And I think this is something artists don't necessarily need to ask themselves early. More so, how do you know when this is complete to you? And I think this is really great because it took maybe 7 months or so for this all to come together. There was a stage where, so context, Stateside consists of 4 interview reflections and large format photographs alongside one large format cyanotype print, which was a 3x4 footprint. So for the photographs and the interviews, those were the first things I did because at the time, which was about early summer, late spring of last year, I was thinking a lot about my Puerto Rican lineage. Oh, I had also visited Puerto Rico for the second time in March. And I was just thinking a lot about it. For those who don't know, my dad is Puerto Rican and my mom is Black American. And I am always thinking about my identities: Black woman, Black American, specifically Puerto Rican. I got some other Caribbean cultures like in the mix, but culturally, those are the 2 things I am. Ethnically, those are the 2 things I am. But there are a couple other little things in my lineage that I know less about, but I do know exist. Anyway, neither here nor there. At the top of the year, I'm thinking about my Puerto Rican lineage a lot. I'm thinking about what it means for me to be a Puerto Rican woman born in the States, finally getting the opportunity to visit the island in my adulthood, and kind of, it wasn't a full reckoning yet, but just reckoning with the fact that like I didn't grow up being able to go to the island and I don't have a lot of family left there. I do have a great aunt and some of her kids and like relatives there that I got to meet at least 2 people, but my great aunt I actually grew up knowing and everything. So it was wonderful to visit her on an island. But through that trip and through just like me always thinking about this identity, I'm like, what does it mean? Am I not Puerto Rican enough? Which there's a lot of things that plays into that. I'm not fluent in Spanish, and which is actually like kind of like a Puerto Rican stereotype. Puerto Rican specifically born in the States is a bit of a stereotype. And that question of not being Puerto Rican enough, plenty other identities also struggle with. So not being something enough, not being woman enough, not being Black enough, XYZ, based on whatever your situation is or wherever you are. And through years before this project, actually, when I first moved to LA, I realized how much of a privilege it was to hold the identities that I have and be from Chicago. So Chicago, if you don't know, has a really huge Puerto Rican population. There is a designated neighborhood. It's called Humboldt Park. It's filled with a Puerto Rican museum. It's filled with Puerto Rican doctors, teachers, schools, all of that. And I'm from that neighborhood. And though I moved out of it when I was a little older, I was born there. I grew up going to the Puerto Rican parade. I've never stopped going to the Puerto Rican parade. So I was around all of this part of my identity my entire life. Also, in that same regard, being Black American, there are Black Americans in this neighborhood. I visited my Black American family. I went to Black schools my entire life. So I was always around my identities my entire life. And that is such a privilege. And in moving to LA 6 years ago, I thought because it was a big city that it would be easy. Like, this isn't some small town in the middle of the country where I would assume it would be difficult to find Puerto Rican culture, Puerto Rican restaurants, Puerto Rican groceries at a grocery store, something like that. I'm like, I'm in LA. This is going to be fine. And it wasn't. It was quite difficult, actually. There's 2 Puerto Rican restaurants that I found, and I was like, this don't make no sense. Like, where the Puerto Ricans at? Like, what? And through all of these thinkings and realizing the different experience I have from my own family. For example, my dad was born in Chicago, but his eldest siblings were born in Puerto Rico, and he's the youngest of all of his siblings. And what that means for him and his dynamic, and what that means for us and our dynamic, and my sisters and XYZ, right? So I say all that to say, I was already thinking a lot about this particular identity, my relationship to that side of my family and the island, and what that means to me. Since I was already deep in thought for a while, I was like, yo, I think I want to do a photo series about this. I don't really know, but I know I want it to be on large format. I had been shooting on large format at that point for a year now, practicing. Shout out to my homie Austin Pope, who lets me use his camera and who solely shoots on large format. I shot this on 4x5 Arista Ultra, and it was so beautiful. I love that film so much. It's the film I learned on, though I have shot on Ektachrome and I think one other, but you know what I'm saying? I love it. I love a little black and white situation. And it's also what I had available to me. So it was like, let's do it. So in the journey to find subjects, I found that kind of difficult. Originally, my hope was to find Afro-Latinx people, which means their Blackness has to stem from their Latinness as well, which means they would have to identify as a Black Puerto Rican, and not just like their Blackness from somewhere else. And that was posing to be pretty difficult. For a while, I was like rejecting all of the people. I mean, kindly, it was fine. It was just like, this was the image of the project that I had in my head. So I was rejecting the people that I was finding because they weren't representing this thing. And for context, I come from a mixed Puerto Rican background. So my grandfather is a Black Puerto Rican man and my grandmother is a white Puerto Rican woman. So I was originally very specifically looking for an Afro-Latina, or excuse me, an Afro-Latino experience, because initially I was looking for anybody. That was posing to be quite difficult. In LA, I was having a hard time finding these people. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just stick to some women, because I did find at that point maybe one woman. I'm going to just stick to women. And then it was like, okay, I want Black women just with some Puerto Rican lineage, because it was really getting difficult trying to find everybody. And I ended up originally photographing and interviewing 4 women, and then doing a self-portrait and sort of interviewing myself, if you will, which is, I guess, really just me being more in thought. But that's what it was initially. And it was beautiful. All I knew is that I had these questions about family histories, and I wanted to ask other people how they felt about their lineage, about being born in the States, and whether or not they had visited the island or had like connections to the island still. And I'm so glad I made these adjustments, because it led me to the project that I have now, and I'm so proud of and I love. Like I said, I'm always thinking about all of my identities, and my womanhood, my womanness is one that is very important. I'm always talking to women. I photograph women the most. I think women are my audience, and I am in women audiences all the time. I seek out women all the time. And so when I narrowed in my search to Black women, it really made sense for the type of art practice I already have, the themes I already think about. And I think for somebody who is in an early stage of being an exhibiting artist, that is something you can think about when building up your project. I don't think all of your projects have to fit a certain theme. Maybe you are not impassioned by, the same one or two things throughout your entire career. I'm definitely not. Like, I have so many ideas and passions all the time. But what I do think is that it felt good to be resonant in a moment like that, where I'm like, oh, this feels very aligned with me and my practice as an artist already. If you look back at previous exhibiting work of mine, dare I say all of it features Black women. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know if any features a man, but I think of one now. One one project I exhibited features men. So this is a very resonant to the type of artist I am. Okay, right. Two, I always got a question. She's a curious gal. Okay. I'm asking myself questions, I'm asking everybody questions. I'm inquisitive. I need to know. I want to know what's up. Three, family histories. Much of what I am always thinking about as it pertains to just being a person or an artist is my own family history and archival work. I am knee deep in my family's archive nearly every day. So it made sense. It was like, I wasn't thinking about if family history made sense of what it was, because I am just always thinking about family histories. And so to get a better understanding of maybe my own or the larger narrative of family history and this specific identity, it was like, yeah, I want to know about yours if you're comfortable with sharing. And thankfully, I found four women who have completely different journeys and completely different relationships to the island and their Puerto Rican heritage and culture to share their family histories with me and what they knew thus far. So, with all of that in mind, I took all of these little bits and pieces and I made a photo series. I interviewed four women last year, 2025, on large format in my backyard in LA. And I photographed them there too, in the middle of our conversation and after our conversation. And some of them got so deep and some so real. Some of them were great mirrors. And we'll get into a little bit of that. But when I think about the images I had, I think maybe because it's large format, resources are limited. I can't just be shooting off like crazy like it's digital. So I took, I think, maybe 3 or 4 photos of every subject and just chose my favorite one, with which left me with room for error. Large format is still a pretty new practice for me. It's only been 2 years and it's not something that I get to shoot with every day like digital. So because of that, I knew that I wanted to take at least a few to give myself options in case some didn't come out. You know what I'm saying? And luckily I got one that I loved of each subject. But I did have some misfires where, some of the photos are a little blacked out or whatever. It's fine. Shout out to experimentation. So with those images done, I get them developed and scanned at Art House Film Lab based in Los Angeles. Actually, the first Black-owned film lab in Los Angeles. Shout out to my boys. And I am like, this is great. This is beautiful, but it's not done yet. And that's like a month worth of time. I'm just like, it's not done yet. I don't know what it's going to turn into. Luckily, I also told my subjects at the time, like, I don't know what this is going to turn into yet. This is just what I'm thinking about. So if y'all got some patience and participating, I'll let y'all know what's going on. I'm looking at these photos. I'm loving them. I'm editing, I'm playing with it, whatever. But I'm like, I don't know. It's not done yet, but I don't know. Around the same time, I'm thinking a lot about the color blue. Fun fact, blue was my second favorite color. Purple was my first, and then came yellow. In case you wanted to I don't know, have a cute little notebook about all the Chrissy things. But anyway, so I'm studying the color blue. To be honest, this isn't my first time studying the color blue, but how it is different is this is my first time really studying the Puerto Rican flag. And so I knew that there were variations of the Puerto Rican flag and it had changed over time based on colonialism, based on movements, and I just never really did a full deep dive though. In my study of the flag, I am looking at the color blue some more. And I'm like, this is so interesting. What my favorite Puerto Rican flag, even before I knew it was the freedom flag, what is the baby blue flag. Even as a kid, I was like, that's just the prettier flag. Also, I have always been a bit rebellious. I come from the kind of family that, they told me not to say the Pledge of Allegiance from a very early age. I was probably in like fourth, fifth grade when my mom had us stop saying the Pledge of Allegiance, just to give you like a little bit of insight of the kind of household I come from. So in that way, I looked at the current Puerto Rican flags blue, and it was just like, this felt representative of colonization. Like, this is the blue of the American flag, and Puerto Rico, if you don't know, is still a territory of America. And I just didn't like that. I didn't like it. Even as a child, I was like, I'm not messing with this. I like the baby blue one. And so in learning more about how that baby blue one is the freedom flag, it really had me looking at what indigo means to the country. And that's when I was reminded through my research that indigo was a cash crop during enslavement, where enslaved people cultivated indigo alongside cane sugar, and there was another crop, I forget. Some minerals, like I know copper was a part of it, a couple other things. But indigo had a little stint in Puerto Rico specifically, and I think in a couple other Caribbean countries. And I was like, that's interesting, because indigo also has an incredible history in Black American culture. And so for me, that married some ideas and helped me think deeper on it. But for a few months, I was just there. I'm doing all this studying. I'm thinking about the importance of the color blue in Puerto Rican culture. And from a TikTok, actually, I learned about Ramon Betances, who is considered to be the father of the Puerto Rican Revolutionary Movement, who actually is the creator of one of the flags. And I go, interesting. So I do a little deep dive on him. The plaque is in Paris, which thankfully I got to see at the end of last year when I visited Paris for the first time. I put it on my list. I need to see this in person because he's also an abolitionist. I think it's important to honor people who believe in Black liberation. And he was actually exiled from Puerto Rico because of his belief in Black liberation and his movement towards it. Shout out to a revolutionary. Anyway, off track. So I go, okay, this, it's just getting me deeper and deeper into my personal study of this topic, of my relationship, and of the island. And from there, I learned about a class that is being hosted and stewarded by Nesanet Abageze. I don't know if I'll be saying my girl last name wrong. I'm so sorry, Ness, but she is an incredible artist that I learn from all the time. And she told me she was hosting a special cyanotype course. It was a month long, but it was rooted in grief work. The theme was grief, and every week we talked about who or what we were grieving, and we were given prompts and readings and watchings to immerse ourselves in our practice of grief work and artist work, which was a beautiful way to work. I had never grieved in a group like that and then made art in a group right after. I think it was really beautiful for me to feel and practice. Just so y'all know, I brought forth my friend Squeaky, my Aunt Maria, and a little bit of the disconnect that I have from the island. That class is what tied everything together for me, because that's where I got the idea to print the cyanotype of the Puerto Rican flag. And on the last day of the class, or maybe second to last day of the class, I got a negative of a small Puerto Rican flag to print on cyanotype, because at that time it was like, let me just see what this looks like. Like, let's see if what I'm imagining in my head is what will come from essentially this test print. And it was beautiful. I actually have the print with me right here. Oh, I got the print I made of Squeaky too, not the one I made of my Titi Maria. But this is the original test print I made, printed on fabric. It was my first time printing on fabric. We also printed on paper like normal cyanotypes, but it was my first time printing on fabric. And this is the thing that did it for me. This is cotton. But in the study of Puerto Rico and my Puerto Rican culture, I was thinking about the types of fabrics that we use because of this is typically linen for a lot of our traditional clothing. Feeling the fabric and seeing the blue, and it's a different blue from all the other blues of the flag, but it just felt like it was hitting home. It's this beautiful indigo color that is important to Puerto Rican lineage and culture and history, and it tied it all together. And from there, I was like, okay, I want to make my first large cyanotype. And making that print combined with the specific personal family histories of the women I photograph, coupled with the history and cultural history that I was putting together of the island itself, it helped me tell the story of the disconnect we can feel being stateside born Puerto Ricans. Some people might call the States the mainland. That's not language I enjoy. And so I don't use language like that because Puerto Rico is a country and it deserves to be a country. And it was a country before Spanish people came and colonized. So the United States is not the mainland to me, but it's the States. So we stateside. You hear me? So anyway, all of that really brought my idea together, and I felt like tied all these stories together, which was the thing that made me feel like this is the story. This is the complete thing that I was hoping to do. So what I would say to somebody just starting out in exhibiting or trying to put a project together for exhibiting, I think all of my pieces start with thought. I think I'm not even tied to that, like everything has to be in thought. I'm down for a project just being about fun. Like, this isn't some deep thinking thing that I like drudge through all of these feelings for. Like, this is just something I really enjoyed making. Like, I'm down for that. Not everything has to be the super deep situation, but it is for me. It's typically how I create. I think a lot and then I make something about it. Having all these little pieces fit together let me know that it was a complete body of work. That felt a little long-winded, but I like giving y'all the context, and I probably could have gave y'all more. So I don't know. If you got more questions, you can put them in the chat. Okay. Question number 2. What did you have to remove conceptually or emotionally to make the project legible to an audience? So one thing I did was not include a transcription of any of the interviews. To be fair, I don't have full transcription of the interview. I took notes and I had little clips here and there. But I also thought it was maybe just, it felt like a little bit over the line if I was to share all of those clips with folks. I appreciate that my subjects were like down to tell me these family histories, and family histories are complex, bro. Like, it just be a lot. And while they were open to share that with me, that doesn't necessarily mean they were open to share that with everybody, even though they knew this was going to be some kind of project eventually. So instead, what I did was wrote reflections about the interviews. And I did that over time. Like, right after I interviewed them, I had my notes and I drew out more of my thoughts about what they said and da da da. And then a couple months pass and I'm adding more and I'm changing thoughts and da da da. Up until the end, I had multiple drafts of all of these reflections until I made it until, what felt the best to me about the most important parts of our conversation. And I just thought emotionally it was safer that way. Y'all need to know all their business, okay? Damn. Okay, so 3, at what point did you start making decisions in relation to how it will be displayed? Love this question. Display is some of my favorite things. I have so many more ideas in life about installation process and the different ways I would love to display my work. New work, old work, all types of stuff. What I knew is that the cyanotype was the centerpiece. I wanted it large for that reason. I wanted to add to the history of the Puerto Rican flag. Like, here's a new one that we can be flying. And I thought, this needs to be the centerpiece. This is the thing that holds us all together, because while all these family histories are completely different, all of their relationships are completely different. Their relationships to their lineage are completely different. The one thing that is holding us together is the fact that we hold this lineage, and this flag is a symbolism of love and pride of who we are, regardless of where they are on their journey. So I knew that that was the centerpiece. Originally, what didn't work out in this installation, I really wanted it maybe over a vent or something so that the flag could wave. I think that image is so powerful, just being able to see that flag wave, even though it would be hanging vertically instead of horizontally. I don't know. It waving horizontally, like, that's the normal way we see the flag, but I just was not called to that. I did not love that. I love seeing specifically the Puerto Rican flag this way, vertically. And I just saw it like waving in the air, or like a slight breeze, or when somebody walks by, it just felt romantic and beautiful and like an island, I guess. Like, I don't know, if I saw this image in my head and I really wanted it that way. And I wasn't able to accomplish the consistent way that I wanted, but having the 4 portraits of my subjects with positioned just outside of the flag is how I knew I wanted that presented. Like, it's surrounding the flag, kind of surrounding the culture That's what I imagined for the piece. And luckily, I was able to get that. Okay, 4. This is a materials question. What practical elements did you underestimate the first time you exhibited? Okay. So I don't know that it's necessarily rooted in underestimation, but one thing I can say, I've exhibited a few times now, quite a few times now, and it's always more than you think, no matter what. Whatever you want to do it always costs more than you think. So hopefully, wherever you're exhibiting is providing some kind of materials fund for installation, for any materials you might need to finish a project or something like that, which thankfully we were given that to participate in this exhibit. But even in that, I still exceeded the budget because materials can be expensive. So, what I will say is do what you got to do to make the art you want to make. Make concessions if you must make concessions, but whatever you want on that wall or that installation or that piece, do what you got to do to make it come to life. Now, I don't think things have to be perfect. I don't believe in perfection. I believe in making the thing. Okay. If I got to make another iteration of the thing so I can get what I want, I will simply make another iteration. But for this first iteration, like I just mentioned, I couldn't get the wave effect. Please no. I will get a wave effect. Okay. I'm going to get the exhibit I see in my head, but I'm grateful that I got to put it out into the world as is. That also isn't make or break for me. There should be some non-negotiables for you, especially as it pertains to the art. It was very important for me to print on glass for this project. For me, it was a reflection of the sea glass that washes up on Puerto Rican shores. You can find it still. It's from like this crazy tsunami hell years ago that still washes up all these beautiful green bottles. And then, of course, like landfill stuff. But these beautiful gorgeous green shards just be washing up, and it's so gorgeous. And although I was not printing on green, I was drawn to this relationship of like, one, we got the flag, we got the stories. I want something that's physical, I guess. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that was glass. That meant I wasn't printing with everybody else and I was printing by myself. And that meant my printing cost was going to take up the majority of my budget that I was allotted for this specific material. It is what it is. This is what I want. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't get the wave. I don't get the wave on the flag, but I got my glass prints. That's more important to me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just things like that. And that's what I would tell people just starting out. My first solo exhibit, I wasn't given a materials budget at all. It was all self-funded. And it's things like that, like where you make concessions, like can you do a couple jobs or something like that to help fund it? Can someone else support that funding if it's not being funded through the space? Like things like that. You know what I'm saying? Work your magic. Figure out how you can get the thing that you want, which also makes me think about contracts and lighting and labels. One, labels are very important to me. I want every single piece labeled, and I personally am writing my statement about the piece. That's important to me. I always have something to say about what I made, and I want people to have a particular type of context as they're viewing a piece. Now, the opinions they gather thereafter, have nothing to do with me. Everything is subjective, but I need a base level understanding of where my thought practice was when creating this piece for you to view it. You know what I'm saying? Labels, very important to me. But contracts, of course, have contracts before you are in that space at all that maintains your rights to your work, especially if you're not selling it to the gallery. You maintain the rights to your work, you own all the work, and then that also clearly labels out if you are selling work, how much percentage goes to you, how much percentage goes to gallery. Ideally, you're keeping 100% of your own proceeds, but there are plenty of galleries where that's the name of the game, and you just want to make sure you're getting a rate that is fair to an artist. So, get the rate that you can work with that feels good to you. I'll say that much. Okay. 6. Did your relationship with the curator, installer, or institution change the meaning of the work? No. My relationship to any of this didn't change the meaning of the work, but my relationship to those people did change, which was really beautiful. So, for example, the installer, I got to meet the two installers. One of them was named Hermancio, I think. I'm so sorry if I'm getting that wrong. So he saw my cyanotype and was like, oh my God, I make cyanotypes too. And he got to share some of his work with me and we got to chop it up about that a bit. And he actually put me on to a setup that I could do in-house if I wanted to. And that was incredible. And I don't always have that relationship with an installer. In fact, half of the time, if not more, I don't even get to meet the installer, which I think installers are so important. And they're figuring out ways in which we can accomplish the way you want to install your art. They're fundamental to the process. So I was like, oh my God, this is so tight that I actually got to like sit with him and talk to him a bit. Sometimes installers you do get to talk to more, especially if you have like a little more intricate setup. But yeah, so my relationship to the installer changed where prior to that moment, I had no relationship at all. My relationship to the curator, I think, just got deeper. Prior to that, we had incredible conversations about the work. This exhibit is actually his first doing an all women's curated exhibition. And to be a part of that in his journey, for him, he said multiple times, like he's embarrassed that he's just now doing this. But I appreciate working with a curator that can be honest in that way about how he wants to change and show up in his work and curating spaces like this. And so through that, through all the conversations that are necessary leading up to an exhibition date, like y'all know, if you've ever been a part of a thing, hosted a thing, produced a thing, y'all know it is so exciting, so beautiful up until like that last week where it's not only stress, but things get stressful because you're realizing like all these little last minute things you got to do and, you know, things happen, schedules are changing, shipments are late or something like that. Like something is always happening. And so when it came down to crunch time, I really appreciated working with somebody who really knew what they wanted and were really making it happen. And so, like I said, the relationship to these people deepened for me, but the relationship to the work did not change at all. 7, what felt most exposed about putting this work in public? And how did you prepare yourself for that? This is a really beautiful question. So, I feel like for a while now, I've just been practicing being seen and feeling comfortable in that. And I guess in that way, that is how I felt most exposed. I don't carry any difficult feelings about this project and what I was working through. So nothing felt vulnerable in presenting the idea, in presenting the theme. If anything, I think my subjects were being much more vulnerable in that regard, but actually being able to talk to people about the project, I am typically, or I should say historically, a little more nervous about because it's like, oh, I've been working on this project for X amount of time and I have all these feelings and people are about to look at me and look at my work at the same time. And what does that mean? And all that. Like sometimes I can really kick up some stuff for me emotionally about being witnessed and seen, especially because I am usually talking about something that I care deeply about. But I think because this project, I, one, didn't have any difficult feelings on, I was really excited to talk about the work. But also, two, when it comes to being Puerto Rican, what I know about, unfortunately, much of the world is that people can be quite anti Black. And one privilege that I have is that I was protected by people who were not. And so I was so excited to talk about this particular identity of mine because one, if you had some weird shit to say, that shit was gonna get sliced and diced right there. And I was okay with that. But two, if you had anything else to say, whether that was positive, neutrality, uncertainty, I'm excited to go on this deep dive about my relationship and other people's relationship with their history, with the history of the island, with the history of being Americans, whether you're from the island or not, what all of that means. Like that kind of stuff excites me. So I think for the first time, in my exhibiting. Oh no, actually, my last exhibiting I did in LA at the end of last year. I felt super comfortable there too. But this one's a more personal project than that one was. This one of my more personal projects that I historically am quite nervous to talk to people about and be witnessed and be seen. This one, I felt so comfortable being seen in this. I felt so comfortable talking about it, listening. I didn't feel nervous at all. And I really appreciate all the work that I had to do over the years as it pertains to both my work and myself as a woman and a person to show up comfortably in opening reception at very least. Okay. Hey, what does a successful exhibition give back to your practice beyond visibility? Love, 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 love this question. A successful exhibition to me is one where I met someone new and got to talk to them about how they felt about the work, the questions that the work brought to them, and things like that. That is success. It feels good to sell work. It feels good to be affirmed in that way. You know, that, like, whoa, somebody else values the work that I made that took X amount of time to make enough to pay me for that time, to pay me for that effort, to pay me for that research, for that thought process. You know, that's so affirming and so validating. But that isn't the only successful marker. To me, anytime I've been able to have, like, you know, when you have a real good conversation with somebody you just met and you like, whoa, why are we clicking so good? And y'all just, the banter is perfect. I'm a type of gal, I like to riff. That's how my comedy work for real. If you don't know nothing about me, I'm the funniest girl alive. And I like banter. I like to riff. I like to bounce off people. And if I just met you and we bouncing off each other real good and you got, you know, a good back and forth, you have good questions for me, I have good questions for you, and we leave this moment feeling really good. Having that feeling from work that I made, bottle it up, bottle it up. That great success, yes, I love that feeling. That makes me feel like everything that I was thinking about that felt so unclear at a time was all worth it. It was all worth it because somebody else resonated with it. And that doesn't have to be the truth for you. That doesn't have to be enough for you, but it is enough for me. The question mentions visibility. I think visibility is incredible as a person who likes to exhibit art. I think it's wonderful to find new people who are interested in the work that I do. You just never know what can come of it. Maybe we could work together in the future. Maybe they become a subject. Maybe I become a subject of theirs. Like, who knows? Like, life can take you in so many different ways that I think it's so cool to have my work be visible in the world. There's a moment in my career where I didn't want to be visible. I wanted it to be all about the work. And I thought that was very artistic. I thought that was righteous, even. Like, why does it have to be about me? Like, I don't want to be da da da. But I'm grateful whether this person, this institution, this group knows about me or the work or both. I think no matter what, it will lead to the things that I'm thinking about, which are leading to creation. So I'm much more comfortable in visibility now. Do I still get a little awkward? Yeah, like, of course, I'm simply a human. But I think all of these things help me to feel successful when I'm exhibiting. 9, how has exhibiting changed the way you start new projects, not just how you finish them? Interesting. I don't know that it has changed the way I start new projects. I think what it has done over time is allowed me to think about different ways to approach the end a little earlier. Sometimes I am just very much in my thought and I'm thinking about how to build the thing I'm imagining, or even just still imagining what those pieces look like. Whereas now, because I've had some practice in this, I think about other institutions or companies that might be in alignment with what I am thinking about. Maybe there are people I can pitch to, maybe they're collaborators. I have so many ideas now about brands to collaborate with that I think about who they are sooner in the process, if that makes sense. And I think that's the only way it's changed. Otherwise, as a girl, I'd be thinking, I think about the things that I want to make and then I make them. And that is how I've created thus far. But now I have a little more wherewithal to think about what spaces these thoughts would be beneficial in, or people that these pieces could be beneficial to. But I think that's the only way that exhibiting has changed my thought process on new projects. Okay. And a final question. When you look back at the version of yourself who was trying to become an exhibiting artist, what did they misunderstand about the process? And what do you wish they had protected more fiercely? Okay. So, what do I wish I understood earlier? One, I would say, just in the way this question is formed, is I wasn't aiming to be an exhibiting artist. I didn't see it as something different. I was like, oh, I'm a photographer. So naturally, I would be in a gallery. I didn't have any other context than that. I was just like, oh yeah, like I love to have a little gallery or something like that. Like that'd be tight. And it just fell into place. I didn't really seek it. I made work first, and then my first exhibits found me. I was either like approached or asked about presenting my work somewhere, and I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. But so I just didn't approach it in that way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with approaching it in that way. You might get to where you want to go a little faster. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? But what did I misunderstand about the process? Early on, I'm thinking of my first solo exhibit a lot. I know I exhibited before that, but like I'm drawing a blank right now. But my first solo exhibit was in 2018, I think, at Young Chicago Authors in Chicago, where I presented this photo series called Back Home, which was the study of the importance of Black hair as it is treated as an heirloom, how to take care of it, and how boys are often left out of that tradition. And at that time, I didn't have a manager. I didn't expect that cut for gallery to artist to be as much as it was at the time. I didn't know how to properly price my work, sort of. Like I had already been working on pricing my work as a freelance photographer, but I was like, what does this mean to like sell an original versus sell smaller prints and how to price those? Like what's a fair price for all of those? And what happens if I don't sell all of these in what images work best in exhibition. Notoriously, people always say like portraits don't do as well in exhibition, and that idea comes with some truth. But I just have a personal belief that I don't gotta believe what everybody else believe. The majority of the work that I do is in portraits, and I've sold my original portrait pieces, so whatever. But it's rooted in some truth. Like some people don't want a portrait of somebody they don't know hanging in their home. They want something potentially abstract. Like the face isn't the feature of the portrait. I don't know. There's a lot of variables, but that is a part of it, and I didn't know that. And that whole series was a series of portraits. I think maybe only one photo wasn't a portrait, but I sold portraits there. So whatevs. I didn't yeah, I think those were the big things I didn't understand. I guess marketing. I guess if I had like wishes for the version of me that was presenting then is I wish I knew how to market that myself a little more. I relied very heavily on word of mouth, and I think I had a great opening night there. That was the first thing I did that was all me, and that was really daunting to me at the time. Actually, I was very nervous, but daunting just feels a little too extreme. I was very nervous because it's kind of like that feeling of like being a kid and wanting to throw a party but being afraid ain't nobody gonna show up kind of thing. Like I definitely had those feelings, but I was just so deep in like making it happen that I remember not thinking too much about who was gonna make it until like the very end and then being like, oh shit, what if nobody shows up? But yeah, I wish I knew that like I could hit up some of the local like papers and publications and stuff like that to be like, hey, there's this show happening. And I didn't realize that I could do that. You know, at the time I was like, who does this? Like, I don't know. So it's stuff like that, which isn't entirely misunderstanding the process and more so not knowing the process at all. And that framing is so expensive. That's where I really learned that at. Framing is so expensive. Oh my God. I wasn't prepared for that at all. Second part of the question says, what do you wish they had protected more fiercely? And I don't know. I don't necessarily think there was anything that I needed to protect more fiercely in that experience. I am grateful to feel quite lucky in in how some of the opportunities have come to me, and I'm really grateful for that. but protect that IP, have them contracts, and even for selling your work, authenticate it, sign it back, let people know this is one of 50 or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? But I'm very grateful that, at least in reflection, I don't think I needed to protect anything more fiercely at the time. And that maybe it was my time. I remember being very tired trying to put all that shit together, but it was a good time. So yes, I guess in celebration of exhibiting a new piece of work, I wanted to offer some insight on the ins and outs of being an exhibiting artist. And I feel really grateful to have more work in exhibition. As a reminder, Stateside, my beautiful project, is in exhibition at the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance in Chicago up until the summer. I think it closes July 3rd, if I'm not wrong, 2026. So if you're in Chicago, or you will be, stop by, go view the work. I'm gratefully presented alongside so many other Caribbean women image makers. And all of our pieces are so different and ties us to the island in different ways. So I would love to hear about what you think if you go. So, you know what I'm saying? Hit the chat for that too. And let's get into our next segment. Today's episode is brought to you by Bridges Build Studios. Bridges Build Studios is a creative space where you can host your workshops and intimate events or plan your next photo shoot. This Latino-owned studio is located in the Pilsen neighborhood in Chicago, and you can find them on Instagram at Bridges Built Studios to book. Let's get back to the show. Okay, this segment is The Gear Don't Matter, but I'm still looking for a new name for this segment. I still kind of like it. I just don't think it works all the time. So if you got a new name idea, let me know. But what's my favorite piece of equipment to use? And it doesn't have to be a camera right now. It is Cyanotypes. I've been loving making Cyanotypes. And for the past couple months, it's been Cyanotype. So a little Cyanotype kit is my favorite piece of equipment to use right now. Yes. Photographs not taken. What's a photograph you wish you would have taken, but it didn't happen? So, for context, this segment is based off of a book called Photographs Not Taken, which is an anthology of essays of photographers making lists or writing out the photographs they wish they would have taken, but either morally chose not to, maybe they didn't have their camera on them, things like that. And with this question, I always want more stories, you know? I feel like I think I mentioned it before. I want a better way of asking this question because I don't usually be getting what I'm looking for. And I want it to be open to interpretation. And that's okay with me that I don't always get what I want out of it, but I do want more stories. So if you've never heard one of mine, I will tell you a more recent one. I always have some floating around. Oh, you know what it was? So at my gallery, actually, I was thinking about my dad's mom, who is my Puerto Rican grandma. I have a photo of her at the one. Okay, so the gallery I was just talking about that I did called Back Home, I have, which is about my Black American lineage. I have a image of my Puerto Rican grandma staring up at one of my images. And I think it's really beautiful and really special. We lost her a couple years ago in the pandemic, or during shutdown, I should say. And that's one picture of her that sticks in my mind all the time. And so coming into during this one, thankfully, I still have my mom's mom, my grandma with me. And she came to the show. And there was a moment where I was looking at her view my images. And I just thought it was funny because this one's a little more about the Puerto Rican lineage and she would be the one that's here. But in that moment, while exhibiting day is it's so busy. You don't actually get the chance to just enjoy your friends and family being around very much because you're having a lot of conversations with a lot of people, which is great. I enjoy that about opening reception. I enjoy talking to other people, but I say that to say, like, you don't really get to talk to your people for as long as possible. And there was a moment where I'm in a conversation with someone new who's telling me about why the project resonated with them. And I just look over and I see my grandma looking up at my piece. And I thought a piece of my other grandma. And I was like, whoa. And I wanted so badly to take that photo, one, so that I could have both of them. And I would cherish it so deeply. But at least I have the memory. But it was that moment that I wish that I had this picture of my grandma looking up at my work and reading. And I wish I knew what she was thinking. Yeah. Okay. PLC playlist. What have I been listening to? Let's pull up the Spotify babes. Okay. So I've been kind of deep in my blog bag because for my birthday, which was a couple weeks ago now, I flew a plane. It was one of the most beautiful things in my life. I love that I did it. But because of that, I listened to one of my favorite songs over and over since then called Flight School, which is a T-Pain and Kanye song from way back. Okay. Not current Kanye. But it was one of my favorite songs by then. Also, there's a version with GLC on it that you can't find damn near anywhere but YouTube. But so I was running Flight School down. But because of that, in preparation of that, I was also listening to some of my favorite songs that feature flight themes or being high themes in the music, which if you're around during the blog era, you already know the two main culprits was Currency and Wiz Khalifa. Ran it back a million times. But naturally, that same era, your girl was listening to a lot of Big KRIT, which leads me to the song that I forgot about and that came on randomly in this playlist. And I was like, oh, this was my. So it's Big KRIT Temptation off the Forever and a Day mixtape. If you know, you know. Oh, my God. That sent me, baby. That sent me. I've been in a real good era. Also, General Order. I was reminded of the song Excellent. Oh my God. When I tell you I've been a real good bag lately, I've been in a real good bag. Oh my goodness. Okay. And last but not least, Shoot Your Shot, who is somebody or a company I would love to photograph or work for. So for a company, I would really love to collaborate with a glasses brand, like a frames brand, like a Warby Parker or somebody else, something like that. I really want to collaborate with Gap or like Farm Rio for a special little project. Or I would really love to photograph a music artist, or I would really love to photograph a music artist from this era, maybe like a Big KRIT or a Currency. And also, I would really love to present this project and expand it in Puerto Rico. I don't know what company in Puerto Rico, but if there was somewhere in Puerto Rico that I could show this work and have more conversations with more Puerto Ricans from the island, on the island, about their feelings about the diaspora, that would be incredible. So yes, have y'all people call my people. Let me know if you know somebody in any of these rims. Connect us, please. This is a work that needs to be made, that needs to be in the world. With that in mind, you can find me at Qurissy. That's Qurissy, literally everywhere, mate. Easiest to email me or find me on Instagram, though. You can find my project again at the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance in Chicago, currently in exhibition. Or you can find a photographer live check literally everywhere you get your podcast. And I mean everywhere. That's iHeart, that's Amazon, that's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the girls. All of the girls. We're there. And oh yeah, my website is QurissyPhoto.co. There it's not .com, it's .co. Just so you know. And yeah, I love you. Have a good shoot, babies. See you later.